Is your brain on fire yet from regular expressions? There's going to be more regular expressions sprinkled throughout the rest of this course, so you'll have to refer back to this in the documentation if you get lost or need stuff. You just regular expressions is not something. It's something you have to experience, I guess. So some other command line utilities that you should be aware of. Let's start with WC mobi120.txt. I think we looked at this briefly. It's a word counter, but also counts characters and lines and that sort of thing. And so it's like we get 3 numbers, which is the number of new lines, the number of basically the number of times that enter appears in the file, like if somebody pressed the return key, word count, and byte count. And how we know that is by running man WC. And so we can see somewhere in the man pages it has the default output. Huh, that's interesting. Well, this version of the man page for WC doesn't include the default output, which is kind of surprising. Usually the default man page has that. Maybe it does, and I'm just not reading it really quickly. Well, anyway, this is the number of times somebody pressed enter. This is the number of words. This is the number of characters. So yeah, 23,000 lines and 214,000 words. So I guess Melville got paid by the word. It's a lot of words to be paid for. It's kind of fun, kind of scary. This is really useful for looking at log files and doing other sort of text file processing on a system. There's also NL, which will number the lines. So if I do NL mobi10 into less, we can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 13, and we skip to the end. It's like 23,244. Like, useful for a sanity check, right? So we've got all of the stuff here to do some really interesting stuff. Now, if I wanted to send the output back to, I could take the text file, read it in, convert it to a text file with line numbers, and then output it to a text file. That would overwrite the file that I have, right? So let's just send it to mobic. So now I can less mobic.txt and say, hey, we've got line numbers. Look at that. There's a line number for every file. I mean, line. There's a line number for every line. Oh my goodness, look at that. So, maybe we're only interested at the beginning of the file. Head mobi10c.txt. That's the first 10 lines. Maybe we're only interested in the end. Do tail. Oops. There's the last 10 lines. Maybe we want the last 1,000 lines. So we do tail-n 1,000 and see that we, got an output of 1,000 lines for this. If we want to learn more about what they do, we can do man tail and see. We also have, like cat will dump a file. We also have tac. So we do tac mobi10c, and there's line 1, 2, 3. Get it? Tac is cat backwards. I know, right? Aren't those Unix guys so clever? Tac. Woo! Yeah, so that's a thing. I'll show you one other command really quick, which is cut. So what cut does is cut will cut a specific field out of a line. Cut treats every line basically as a record, and the separator, I think by default, is a tab. And so we got tabs when we numbered the thing. So we've got the number, line number, and then a separator, and then some more stuff. So if I do cat mobi10c.txt pipe cut F1 for the first field, all we've got are line numbers. Everything is gone but the line numbers. Maybe if I want F2, it's like there is our text file without the line numbers. You see, we're dumping the line that has, but we're only looking at field 2 on every line. So we end up getting the original text back, basically. Of course, you can also specify the character that is the separator. Maybe you want to separate it on space. Man cut to look and see what our options are. It's like select only these bytes. Delimiter is -D. You use delimiter instead of tab for the field delimiter. So we'll do, F2-D \space. Do we need to quote it? So this is treating the tab not as a field anymore, and so this is you know, we're getting the whole thing here basically. Do field 1, we got nothing because, again, the file begins with some spaces here. Notice that more than one space is not considered more than one file, and the reason that it begins with some spaces here is because by the end of the file, you know, we've got a 5-digit number, but there is still that one leading space. So it's treating just spaces as a delimiting character. Maybe we can string multiple commands together. Cat, it's like we're going to cut F2, which will get rid of our line numbers. Cut dash F1 dash D space. So the first cut gets rid of our line numbers, and the second cut gets the first word on every line. Doesn't this seem like a much more fun way to read Moby Dick? So call me Ishmael, precisely having particular little driving, fine drizzly pausing funeral, hand from peoples as philosophical, take new very. There wharves her extreme waves. Isn't that exciting? It's the first word of every line. We can just use 2 terminal windows here and just compare. Call precisely having particular little driving fine drizzly. Particular little driving fine drizzly. It's just the first word of every line. This doesn't seem like super useful for Moby Dick, but think about the log file for a web server, which we'll probably get into more in the later course. But if you're running a web server like Apache or Nginx, generally the IP address of the remote system is the first field in the file. It's the first entry in the file, and then there's a space, and then there's, you know, the date and time and the file they were accessing and the number of bytes transferred, and a lot of information in the log on a line-by-line basis. But the beginning of the line is always the IP address. And so here, you've basically learned the command that you would use to take the log files and just pull out the IP addresses. Because maybe you're looking for a particular IP address, maybe you're looking to count the number of hits that a particular IP address has hit for a web server. You can do that now. You can start to put these simple commands together for extracting text from the output of programs and actually determine real information about the system. There's another command line program called top, and top will show you stuff that's running on the system. You can run top interactively, but you can also pass the output of top into other programs, searching for running programs, things like that. You also got PS, which will show you the running programs, and PS AUX, which will show you everything that is running on the system. You know, even though I'm just a regular user, I can see the other processes that are running on the system, though I may not be able to see the full command line, like the full program and all of its arguments and everything that goes with that it's running. I mean, I may not be able to see every little detail as a regular user, but as the root user, I would be able to see all of those details and be able to kill these processes and that sort of thing. And see, this is also a fielded output where I can see CPU usage, memory usage, whether or not it's on a terminal, its current status, if it's running or sleeping or a zombie. It's the Z. The Z status is zombie, means that it has been killed, but it is still running. So it's an undead process. So that's why it's labeled Z for zombie. But we'll cover that more in process management and things like that, and other stuff with process management a little later in the course. But for now, know that you can use cut, and so there's a lot of fun things you can do with cut.